Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
A very good morning and welcome to Newsline, live from the Dawson Street studios of News First. And joining me this morning is my wonderful colleague, Bandula Jayasekhi. Good morning, Bandula.
Good morning, Shaukat.
How are you?
Fine.
Keep reinventing my name, matey. And we're also joined this morning, we're delighted to welcome back to Newsline after some absence, Mr. Rusripala Tennakoon, former chairman of the Bank of Ceylon.
Yes.
And retired senior banker, trade unionist, amongst other things. Mr. Rusripala, how are the affairs of state? How do you view it?
Well, we see a lot of things happening, contradictions within contradictions, contrary to things happening contrary to what is being proclaimed and predicted. And we also see ministers, unlike what they, in contrast to what they promised, behaving in very strange manners in strange situations.
How strange?
What are you referring to?
Now today, this morning, I think the papers are reporting a very, very strange incident where the name of a minister is mentioned for getting involved in a road accident and trying to use his authority and power and misuse rather to sort of suppress that.
You're talking of the incident near the Parliament, reported in many of the newspapers, Champi Granawaka.
Yes, yes, I do. I'm referring to that. I'm wondering if this type of thing happened in another country, in a foreign country. By now, serious reactions would be there from the people. At the same time, the parties involved also would be resorting to some decent, acceptable way of reacting.
Do you recall some years ago that wonderful chap Lasantha Wickrematunge from the Sunday Leader exposed an attempt by the former Air Force commander, Jayalat Veerakoddy, who was involved in an accident at the junction of Carter Street, and he had in his car, I think, a female member of the Air Force, and they tried to cover it up, but he was
eventually didn't he resign?
He resigned.
He resigned.
Not that he resigned, he was forced to resign.
So that was the only done thing, isn't it?
At least if
in Boralla Junction.
If one doesn't on his own act, according to the law, according to the requirements, somebody will have to enforce it at least.
And also I know of a big businessman who, when he was 14, he knocked a girl, a young lawyer, killed near the British Council, and he put his drive, and he's a big man today.
What I was going to say is, Mr. Rusripala, it's astonishing, isn't it, that for me there's two things it's astonishing. One is that this minister is now trying to wriggle out of this problem, and instead of resigning, if you remember, in the case of Senator Edward Kennedy, he had this most unfortunate accident in which he was driving, and Mary Jo Kopechne lost her life, and he took several hours to report that to the police. But that particular incident is largely held to be the single cause of Edward Kennedy never becoming the President of the United States. So it haunted him all his life.
And also, how come people are powerless in this country? This is the sad thing. It's always...
Internationally, you can cite so many examples like that. It's a common thing, when such a thing happens. Of course, in
it's
human
tragic.
society, very tragic, very unfortunate that we don't have at least somebody to set an example or at least follow what is happening in the
on the one side, when we listened to the story of the two witnesses who came forward about this matter, one is astonished that the sole occupant of the car, of the Jeep, was a cabinet minister, and no security, nothing, which is that in itself is great. But the rest of the story is abysmal, really.
Yeah, with that type of evidence,
Yeah.
eyewitnesses
Yeah.
saying this, I don't think there is any way out other than to take drastic action against people who are trying to camouflage this, cover these things up.
Indeed. Mr. Risripala, let's listen to this clip from the news yesterday, and let's see. I can't actually hear it, so I don't know how we're going to do this, but let's play the clip. Mr. Producer, can you play the clip?
Because the other guys, the bankers in the room, are hopefully the people who have the clout to go and bang heads together and tell these fellows, look, do it this way, and tell the government also, if you all don't get your act together, we are not interested in backing you all. So don't underestimate your power. You bankers, all of us, we have the power to go and tell the government, either get it done or get off our backs.
Speaking further, he made the following remarks.
In places like Dehiyattakandiya, People's Bank and Bank of Ceylon are giving C-grade branches. Right? They are doing a disservice to those people by putting C-grade officers to run the branch in Dehiyattakandiya, not giving those entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs and farmers in that area the benefit of good banking advice. Let's open it up to the private sector. If any private bank wants to go and set up a branch in Dehiyattakandiya, I can give you complete approval now. I can tell you now itself. Right? If the state banks can't do the job that they want, for God's sake, get out and let the private banks move into the sector.
Governor Arjuna Mahendran also commented on the current state of the economy.
To be honest, this is really make or break. Our economy is in dire straits. We don't collect enough revenue. We have a borrowing to GDP which is completely over the top. Right? The government can't borrow anymore. So the only way you can grow this economy is just to get these small entrepreneurs energized and activated. That to me is the future of this country. It all lies in our hands.
Well, there you are. Strong words from the governor of the central bank, but to me, it sounds as though he's making a statement way above his station in life. His current station in life.
Sounds like he might go back to Singapore.
What's he doing? He's not the minister.
Yeah, Faraz.
What's happening here?
Faraz, I think it looks to me like a complete an outburst of some provocation. You know, I don't know how it has originated.
Yeah.
And not warranting to be a statement made by a public officer in his capacity at a forum of that nature. You know, I understand from the clip, you know, what I heard. I'm hearing it for the first time. But my first impression is, if it is a forum of senior bankers who are discussing the economy and the state of affairs of banking in the country, well, the way how this outburst fits into such a situation, I'm at a loss to understand how it fits in. Because you know, he's apparently talking about a very strange situation. Is he asking, you know, normally we know the dog wags the tail, but I think he's requesting the reverse order.
But I think this is all
bankers to determine the policy and tell the government and dictate terms to a government.
It is absolutely clear in my mind that the Prime Minister, our dear Prime Minister, will not permit Arjuna Mahendran to go home, and he will force him, even chain him to the office of the Governor of the Central Bank. Because you see, Mr. Risripala, the Prime Minister promised us an investigation into that bond matter. It has been so slow that it would have been better to watch paint dry. That is how slow it's been. Now, in the remote possibility that another central bank, a new person is appointed to the governorship of the central bank, let's say somebody nominated by His Excellency the President, for example, well, that person may well release certain details which may well prove to be embarrassing to the dear Prime Minister. So, you know, for all our hope and prayer that Arjuna Mahendran will not be given a new contract, Niroshan Pereira confirmed to News First in an interview that indeed the governor will get a new 6-year contract. What do you think?
But for us, how could he say such things, Rusiri, with this bond issue in his bag, in his drawer? How could he blame the bankers when he is at fault?
Well, but that's what I say. This is a very strange situation where he's talking of some absurd situations where he's asking the bankers in the country to formulate policies for government, which is not possible. Coming back to what Faraz said, about this inquiry and his being allowed or being given another extension of his period. Well, I could say I looked at it in a different way. I think the Prime Minister is very considerate in giving the extension because the skeletons are still in the cupboards. This will have to be exposed one day or the other. Just imagine a situation where he terminates his period and he gets back to his motherland because he's a foreigner. And what is his explanation to his motherland people about these allegations that are leveled against him, accusations which are unresolved? So I think he is given a chance to clear the air and then get back to his motherland. So I think in that context, the giving the extension is okay. If that is, if from what we see in Parliament, they are going to reopen the resurrection of the court inquiry, which if happens, and if it goes in the right direction, that gives an opportunity for Arjuna Mahendran to either exculpate himself or to get
in the context of what when you mentioned about Minister Champika and his incident, I want to say this. Minister Ranawaka is by all accounts a very efficient minister, but an unfortunate minister. This incident, for example.
Yes.
In the case of Mr. Mahendran, I would say the roles are reversed. Here inefficient, and he's very fortunate because he's got the dear Prime Minister backing him. He can't be efficient because he's admitted to News First in a recording with Shamir Rasuddin, our Director of English News, that he takes responsibility for not informing the rest of the primary dealers that the 1 billion became 10 billion. And it's very astonishing that just one company and a state bank acting for that same company by proxy made bids closer to the 10 billion mark than the 1 billion. And that is the simple problem. You don't need these big committees and so on. But this is Sri Lanka.
Well, this matter is now very well known to the people in this country. Everybody who was open for to examination or to look at this issue with an interest knows exactly what has happened. So unfortunately, what is not happening is authoritatively it must be declared that such a thing has happened and somebody should be attributed with the responsibility for such a task. That's not happening. That is what is lacking.
Let's take
and about his attitude, give me a minute.
Yes.
About his attitude, I think it's quite fitting to some of the things that we see today in Parliament, the behavior of some people. It exactly,
reflects that.
Let's
take a short break. Do stay tuned into Newsline. We'll be back shortly.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukutali.
Good morning and welcome back to Newsline, where we're joined by Mr. Rusripala Tenakun, senior retired banker. Mr. Rusripala, what sort of message is being conveyed to the banks? We had a couple of weeks ago the Prime Minister berreting the media, taking to task his relative's newspaper and the editor there. And now
Minister for Higher Education, Lakshman Kirial.
Yes, and then we had Mr. Lakshman Kirial abusing
the media.
And now we have the governor of the central bank sort of lecturing or wagging his finger at bankers.
Abusing them.
Abusing. So we
bank.
would call it abusing. Abusing.
According to the law of the country and the practices prevailing in the banking industry, if there is something seriously lacking in the banking industry, it is the central bank that must take the full responsibility. Now, how can he accuse the bankers who are employees about policy lapses? Now, who appoints the board of directors of these banks? If they appoint competent people, and if they have people who know what is happening in this country and what should happen in this country into those positions, things of this nature won't happen. The policies will be determined, decided by the boards, and in consultation with the ministry, with the directions given by the cabinet. That is the order of things for the bankers to follow. You know, a central bank governor cannot just by an outburst say that you have not done this, you go and stop the government from doing business with your bank. How can you do this? It is utterly absurd.
Bruce, do you think that he has visited Dehiyatta Kandi? He's talking of Dehi. You think Arjuna has gone to Dehiyatta
The
Kandi?
whole problem, Bandula, is, you know, when you bring foreigners into this land, they have been working in different places. They are accustomed probably to what the sultans tell them when they are working under them. You know, you go and do this, you go and do that. If you don't do it, I'll fire you. I mean, that type of attitude. When they come here and land here, they do not know what is happening here.
He was born here. He's a Sri Lankan.
He was born, but he must apply himself here. The unfortunate thing is there is so much of domestic resources. Now we had Rasaputra, we had A.S. Javadana, all the
Good homegrown material. Indigenous material.
You see, I mean, they ran the bank like this. They didn't have to accuse anybody when they wanted to formulate policies. And for a word about the People's Bank, I must say, it will go very, otherwise it's unfair. You know, the founders like Mr. Vincent Subasinghe, who were chairing the board at that time, you know, they sent us to places like in the Kabitigolla, you know, Puhule, you know, Kokkabe, Diul, miles away, walking and then servicing the people. Today, this bank is talking about digitalization. Whom are they trying to serve? What percentage of the clientele are they serving with this enormous amount of money put in for these things? Who is responsible? Who is overlooking? Very unfortunate. The central bank and the policymakers should take the full responsibility, and it's not the bankers. Because their entire policy is lopsided. Millions of money going down the drains for unwanted things, for extraordinary things,
Such as
this digitalization. What is it, digitalization for the People's Bank? What percentage of the customers will make use of, you know, phone banking? He's talking about, what is that place?
Dehiyatta Kandi.
Now I imagine the Dehiyatta Kandi people to telephone the bank and find in their balance what is there, or transfer monies into their credit card through the telephone. Absurd. This is, they have forgotten the base. There is no one to direct the banks. Now imagine, the banks are, instead of being under the control of good bankers, responsible, answerable, today take the situation of the People's Bank. For the last 10 years, the top realm of the bank is being held by 13 contractors, contract employees, being paid around 1 to 2 million each per month. And they are not responsible because there is no valid contract of employment for them. They are not worried about their pensions, they are not worried about their future service, because they are contractors.
Mr. Rosipada, the banks come under a minister.
Yes.
The minister appears to be a little pup, perhaps swimming in a wonderful pond. But the governor, is the governor taking the minister on? Is the governor acting by proxy, perhaps?
It appears that there is a bit of a unfitting situation here, where the minister is withdrawing himself from certain positions and certain authoritative functions, allowing the governor to play ball like this. You know, it's not correct.
The banks don't come under the minister. No,
definitely.
Minister of Finance, it doesn't
Minister
come
of
under.
Finance, and he is answerable to the cabinet. The cabinet is answerable to the president. You know, and the whole cabinet is again in turn answerable to the public of this country. That's the order of normal functioning of a bank.
But it's gone haywire.
And it's worse, you know, when the governor says, well, I will allow any private bank to go, and he thinks that private banks will go and serve the farmers in Deyathakandya.
He's acting very dictatorial.
Well, on the one hand, yes, and on the other hand, he seems to be trying to fulfill another mission which is unseen. Privatization, bringing in the private sector, allowing the private banks, or even rather foreign banks, to come in and play a role here. God knows.
But also, you can't always say that the government banks are doing well. I mean, like, look at the private sector. It's the engine of growth, and private sector, they reach out to the masses. Sometimes you can't. The government sector, they just have a good time.
I fully agree, Bandula. There is nothing wrong with the private sector playing a role, and there is absolutely nothing wrong in their competing on a level playing field. That is how the economy should function. But the state banks which are running at the cost to a public should be properly governed and properly controlled and properly directed to perform their task, because there is a certain element which is not coming from the private sector banks. Whatever is said and done, they have their profit motive, they have their other considerations, they are responsible more to the shareholders to deliver a big package at the end of the day. So with all that, they have a different role to play. Unlike in the state sector, they are not worried much about the package that they are delivering to the owner or the main shareholder at the end of the year. What they are more worried of is the development function and the role that they have.
But look what our channel, look at this government. I mean, we are a private channel. How much we are reaching out? Do you think the state people are doing? No. This is we know the heartbeat of the people.
I think it's great, and I should say great is not the word for it, for this especially this program that you all have started, which brings out to the knowledge of the public as to what exactly is prevailing in this country.
This is the real, we have uncovered, and we are covering the real Sri Lanka.
The reality, in short, is the reality. This is what we have been telling in your own channel. I have said once again, criticizing the budget. What have they done to the agriculture? What have they done to the poor people? What have they done to the poverty line, people below the poverty line? What is the consideration? What is the priority of their programs? This we have been discussing. And over and above that, now you are going into this government, the program. I was really amazed to see what an amount of new inputs or new thinking that you are putting into the society.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, that's the main thing.
Exactly. And it might end up even in the formation of giving an idea to somebody for the formation of a new party in this country.
But this group's success can be largely be attributed to the visionary thinking of the Bank of Ceylon, but before it was politicized. The Bank of Ceylon helped this group enormously.
Those were the good old days where the banks were very close to the business clients. Banks were very close to their normal, ordinary clients, the down-to-earth people, the farmers, the small industry people. Now we are getting distanced completely.
Mr. Pilot, we have one headline says the SLFP vows to bring MR loyalists to heel. So we can infer that the SLFP are having a major wedge in between. That wedge may be called Ranil Wickremesinghe, I'm not sure. But nevertheless, there's a split. The UNP are struggling. Their ideology is quite different. Now, like you say, they want to privatize and so on. The SLFP ideology is quite different. We have various people piggybacking on these parties and splits. Is it time for a new political party?
I think tracing the history, the political history of this country, the times that these things emanated about the ideas of forming new political parties, I mean, they are exactly times, critical times like this, when there is confusion, when there is contradictions, when there is a big need unattended by the government of the people. Such things lead to the formation of parties, political parties. This happened in the past, and right now I think the climate is right for the people to think exactly, are we in the right direction politically, or are we being served properly by the political parties that are now in power? So that type of thinking might lead to the formation of a party. Now I have the association of, I was in the SLFP, I was an executive committee member. When we broke away from the SLFP with Vijay and Chandrika, to form a new party. And that was solely because we found at that time as the SLFP, as the opposition, was not playing the right role. That was the main consideration.
But that party failed.
No, that party went on very well until the demise of Vijay Kumar Natunga. It went on. Of course, these things are inevitable things, sometimes happen. And even Chandrika's emergence subsequently, although she joined the SLFP and came back, she had laid the foundation. The foundation was laid by the Mahajana party, Mahajana Paksaya, where she was the vice president. I was an assistant secretary there in the same Politburo.
What shall we call this new party?
I think, I don't know, I mean, this is something very, but if I was just looking at things that was happening in the world political scenario, I saw how Lee Kuan Yew formed the PAP, breaking away from the UMNO of Malaysia.
The People's what?
People's Action Party. People's Action Party. And remember,
I'd like to call, if I had my way, and I'll probably get into trouble now. Sorry, Rudrani, okay? If I had my way, I'd call it Sirasa, the People's Progressive Party.
Oh my God.
Do you think that we'd get away with that?
Oh my God. Yes, I think the name doesn't matter very much, but the role you all are playing is very much conducive to the people accepting you as a very good source for...
And just before we go, in the last few seconds, I want to tell you this, I forgot to say.
Yeah.
When the Bank of Ceylon helped this group, it must be noted that no foreign bank or private bank came to help us. We had to sell ourselves to the Bank of Ceylon, basically. So on that note, and on the thoughts of perhaps a new political party emerging, I'm going to have to say thank you very much, Mr. Rusripala, for your presence here. It's been an entertaining half an hour. Thank you very much. And Bandra, thank you. And let me say, nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. On that note, I wish you a very good day. Take care and God bless.